MVPs, which are the minimum viable product. Starting small means you create a small product that people can actually use. And I have a good example of an entrepreneur who's making a solar energy cooker. And for a long time, he's been trying to make sure that he gets the engineer to make the what do we say now? The main component, the power component of it. So every time he's supposed to be presenting this to either just ourselves as people, before now he eventually now pivots to go and meet with the investors. He keeps complaining, oh, his product is really not ready. So he takes himself back. So he never has the full product. Until I told him the other week, I told him, you know what? We're not going to keep on waiting for this engineer of yours. You start with what you create, the small product, prototype of it. It can use wood, you can use rope, you can use wires. So that what am I trying to put here? I'm trying to have him now start visualizing the product instead of keeping on waiting until everything is perfect and everything is there. So that even when he's explaining to us, now we are the guinea pigs, the audience, his neighbors and so on. Even when explaining to us, we can start visualizing, what are you talking about, right? So he started on it also. Then we have also talked about pilot programs. So pilot programs is, for example, when you're thinking, I can say the example I have is, whilst we're doing training, remember how they say pilot programs? Yes, that is the pilot program. You just start small. You say, I want to probably train the few women who are in church, for example, in a church group. Use those as your guinea pigs. The response you get, how you present yourself, the content, and that will help you now refine what you want to do, to refine your presentation skills, how you spoke, and even refine whatever it is that you want to say, right? Then we come to testing hypothesis, not just features. Now, hypothesis, as you remember, is you try and find out, when I put it this way, how did the other people respond? If I tweaked it a bit, how did they also respond? Then we've even been told, use real world conditions to simulate impact. What does this mean? It means use current affairs, current conditions. A good example I can give is, I think with food. Right now, we have moved to a lot of natural food, right? And one of the things, like I was recently watching, was on plant-based and meat-based product. So some ingenious entrepreneurs were coming up with a plant-based diet. This plant-based diet had products that would replace meat. So think about where you have meat. You have meat in the hamburger. We have the meat, say there's a hot dog. We have meat chicken. We have meat beef, and so on and so forth. So they had come up with an idea of, the product that I'm going to make is plant-based, but tasting like meat. I know. I was also looking at the consumers as they tasted. No, remember, this is a documentary. I was not there, so I was just watching the reaction of those who were actually eating. And it was interesting because the consumers were like, wow. It's only after they had tasted like 2-3 bites and enjoying it very much is when he tells them, by the way, what you're eating is not meat, it is plant-based. And it and I remember how most of the consumers were so, they wouldn't have known. Now, the other thing that the person who was making the plant-based, what were they looking at? They're looking at the need for food. The earth as it is right now, we are not able to actually maintain it, right? The world population is also increasing. We'll definitely need food. And he was given the example of to rear a, a beef cow needs so much for it to actually produce for you some meat. The the beef cow, you remember it needs water, it needs food, it needs vaccines, it needs care that is in terms of labor. Good morning, Jane. Thank you for joining us. It
Good
needs,
morning, Kathy. I'm happy to be here, and I would have joined earlier, but my phone and my laptop all messed me up. But I'm happy to be here. It's never
thank
too
you.
late, right?
Right, correct. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank, thank you so much.
So the cow also needs the labor. So you can count all those as costs, all to produce very little of beef. And it was also very interesting to see what do you think about the consumption patterns for meat. It is very high, and especially for them who are in Western worlds, because they need fast foods all the time. Their consumption is, let's just put it, amazing, for lack of a better word. And that was interesting. So if you're thinking of creating also the small product, we're telling you, use real world conditions to simulate the impact. So in other words, use real people, be there, dare yourself to actually do it. Don't be too much theory. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we sit back and we theorize. You put everything down on paper and then you sort of kick off. Then when you jump into the real world, people ask you, are you sure this product is going to work? Are you sure you are making it for consumers? Then you feel offended that, oh dear, look at they're talking to me and the way I spent so much time coming up with this innovation. But you have to test it. So you have to also give yourself the scientific heart, so to put it, to go through it, test it, and see if it actually works completely. We come back to thinking about feedback and iteration, right? Listening with purpose. You need to gather feedback from diverse stakeholders, customers, team, and partners. Ask open-ended questions to uncover deeper truth and use structured tools, surveys, interviews, observation, and analytics. Remember that feedback isn't criticism, it's a compass. So let's think about getting feedback from diverse stakeholders. You have actually been mentioned here. We have said customers, team, and partners. Those were in your team. So Jane, since you're there, what feedback have you managed to get so far?
Yeah, in all honesty, I've not been very, I wasn't able to do it. Yeah, there are some things that I was working on. My son is
Okay,
about to go back to school, so
okay,
yeah,
okay, okay.
sorry.
All right, no problem, no problem. So let's think about how we get feedback. In fact, most of the times we're even afraid to ask, right? We sort of don't want to know. We just keep quiet and just pray, just cross our fingers and hope it actually works. That should not be the case. We should we should be bold enough to say, I want to know, what did you think? What do you think I should actually change? You know, the bigger world-class products and services, for them to have reached where they are right now, is they went through a lot of feedback. And I think a very good example that comes to mind for me is the detergent Omo. Isn't it, Jane? Remember how initially it was blue, then it was very harsh, then now it became white. Then later on,
Yeah.
then they added for us some fragrance, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So for them to have reached where they are now, they had to keep on getting feedback. And remember that time feedback was, it's too harsh. So for those who are using it, they kept on saying it's hurting our hands. At some point, it was even peeling for those whose skin was a bit sensitive. They said it was even peeling off their skin. So they had to think of what else to do. So that is just one product. Another product we can think of is, I can say, current cars, the current vehicle industry right now. You can all sometimes, if you're not very keen, they all sort of look the same from the back. We now have the smaller version of cars. You can barely keep up with the manufacturer logos because they sort of all look the same until you come close and you're thinking, all right, yeah, that's different. That's a different vehicle altogether. It's feedback all along. So even as you go through, sometimes I think when we say as entrepreneurs, what kind of interviews and maybe how we'll ask these questions and so on and so forth. Let me tell you, the same way you send out the emails, the same way you should also be able to have a simple questionnaire. I know we are lazy. I know we are very lazy when it comes to now filling out. I know because even when we tell you to RSVP to come for the function, yes, you say, no, I'm coming. No, I told you to type RSVP. You don't. You just show up. Oh, Jane is already there. You did RSVP, but I told you I was coming. No, 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 no. Need to type. So even as you're writing the email, is I think have encourage yourself to start early. That's the other thing. Start early. And some of these things, if you don't start teaching yourself early, they come to haunt you. It becomes difficult later. So start early. So it's part of your processes. So you know that every 3 months, I'm asking for some feedback. Every 6 months, I'm getting some feedback. By the end of the year, you already have feedback. You remember how sometimes as entrepreneurs you asked, do you carry out customer surveys? And entrepreneurs look at you like, what are you talking about? We have no time to do the service. You do. The time the person has made the phone call to give you your order, there's time to ask them a question or two. The time maybe they come to pick, there's time to ask them a question or two. By the time you're invoicing them, there's time. So you have plenty of time. So do not wait until you have now have 20 employees, you have 3 branches, you have expanded, and some things were left behind, right? So let us look at another question we like forgetting about, which is on iteration, which is evolving with intention. So now you've gotten some feedback, right? You've gotten some feedback. It's time to analyze the feedback, identify the patterns, prioritize changes based on impact and feasibility, retest, and refine. So each loop brings you closer to the product market fit. And you can see here. So you can see like phase 1, we launched, we did a test. Then what was our action? Our action was to launch the MVP, the minimum viable product. Remember what we said? You either have a prototype of the product. If it's a service, you have started out with a small group. For example, if you want to become probably a speaker, you try out with a group of your family members. Tell them, by the way, before we all start chattering, I want to stand up and do a presentation for you guys. Guys won't say no. They'll be like, yeah, go ahead. You test out, it's there. Then tell them to give me feedback. You've tested it out there. Then, of course, the outcome is you validate core assumptions. You probably thought your product was going to be very easy to use. No, but you have realized you need to tweak it a bit. You need the engineering mindset. You need a cheaper product, probably. You have realized whatever you use gets burnt very fast. If you have come to the services, you have realized that the way you have been answering maybe the phone call, or the way you stand up in front and your tone, or you forget, and so on and so forth. It's there. You have now seen it. Because probably you've been telling yourself, I can do this. I've been doing it for so many years. Then shock on you when you suddenly now reach there. You have forgotten everything that you are supposed to have even said. You even started wandering off. Or even you're the people who have no clue about keeping time, and so on and so forth. You test it at that time. All right. We'll come to phase 2, where I have talked about the feedback. Okay. So what is the action here? We want you to collect the user insights. What are we looking at? You know, very much as entrepreneurs, we assume so much about the consumer. And one of the things we're told early on by the speaker is we are not very sure of what we want even as consumers. We forget. In fact, we become confused. Today we wanted this. Tomorrow we have changed our minds. So it's for you during the collect user insights that you are able to break down what it is they're looking for. What was the pain coming? Where was the pain coming from? Right? Slowly by slowly, you go through it. And then what will be the outcome is you suddenly discover unmet needs. Yes? So a good example, I'm thinking, let me see. I think I can give an example of vehicles. For a long time, there was a category of vehicles that the manufacturers felt were more for tough terrain, right? And it was put there. It was, but what has happened over the years, different car manufacturers have also tried to come up with a class of their own for this so-called rough terrain. So that they're now all competing. So they're competing now based on their features. So and then again on the pricing, and probably those that have brand equity, a higher brand equity over the years, so they still stand strong. But it doesn't matter now. If you want to get a vehicle that can go through a rough terrain, it's according to your pocket. Nobody stops you. You can go ahead and actually try and acquire it. Right? Because now they have realized, having done the research, they realized there's some unmet needs somewhere. The same case as we have come with the smaller vehicle version. Even those who you didn't think would create a smaller car. Like personally, I never thought the Mercedes would ever try and create a smaller car. But guess what? They actually have a smaller version of it, right? And so does the Honda, the Suzuki, the Mazda. There's a smaller car version of all of them. Then we come to phase 3, where we're talking about the iteration. What is the action? We want to refine the solution. So at first you remember, I think when the small, what was this cars? The cars were having for, remember how the Bolts, when they came, suddenly when Bolt came into the market, how they had the small cars. I'm trying to remember the name. I can't remember the name of all I remember the small, the really small cars. So you remember how they came in, it was all about fuel consumption. In fact, that is all they were remembering. It was fuel consumption. They are not even comfortable. And then Altos, I've remembered that Altos. They are very uncomfortable. But the only selling feature was more of the fuel consumption, the move up and down. All right, it makes sense. But guess what? Now, as consumers, we are thinking, I'm not very comfortable being in these things, by the way. So if you have realized when you look at the taxi hailing app, they upgraded it in a way, that particular model of a vehicle has been edged out. If you realize that, it's sort of they're not now not as common as before. The other models have sort of come to replace them. So they realized that customers also complaining, they're also not very comfortable. But it wasn't also not very comfortable. If you remember, the seats were very hard, right? And then it barely had a boot at the back for you to put your things inside. And then the ride is also very uncomfortable, especially when we go on rough roads. It's like I don't even know where you. No, it's just not a comfortable ride. So the taxi hailing app had to come up with, we need to have our consumers excited and say, oh wow, it was a good ride, it was comfortable. I felt nice when I got to where I was going. And I enjoyed myself, of course. And also, there was also the way when you come out of it, it's like you're inside, I don't even know, a small something, then you jump out. It was just not comfortable. So that's one of the things. So refining the solution. And of course, the outcome they said is improve the value and usability. And that's what they did. So they improved the value in the sense that they realized that they can offer other models as alternatives as well. And with time, as you can see, the taxi hailing app has options. We even have now for comfort, right? Before we never had the option of the comfort. Now we do. So even with the comfort, you actually decide like what kind of car you really want to go with. Is it going to be extra large? Is it really want to be classy? Depending on the function and probably the passengers who are going to be put inside. So some questions I want to leave you with, and probably you'll be able to comment to us in our different platforms, is one question I want to leave is what assumptions are we making that need to be tested? What assumptions are we making that need to be tested? When I talk about assumptions, is what have you been assuming as you go forward with your product or service? What have you been assuming? Right? The second question is ask yourself is whose feedback are you missing? Whose feedback are you missing? And how can you get it? The third question, still on just the feedback, what's one insight from the feedback that you've gotten, but you haven't acted on it yet? What one insight from feedback have you gotten, but haven't acted on it yet? And of course, the last question is, how can you make the iteration part? How can you make the iteration part of your culture and not just your process? Okay, how can you make iteration part of your culture and not just a process? Okay, so I leave with those questions. Be able to give us feedback on our different platforms and also just get to hear what did you try out, what did you start off with. And I would encourage you, even as we start the conversation in the next month, every time you're finishing up, reflect back on what has been said and share with us. We'd like to hear part of your story, part of the insight that you picked up that you felt hit you somewhere. It jolted you to do some action, right? Thank you for being with me throughout. So if you're passionate about supporting SMEs and expanding your reach, so consider becoming a Founders Network partner. So as a partner, you have the opportunity to host sessions, share your products and services with our engaged community, and be part of the content that drives real transformation. So here are some of the benefits you get by partnering with us. There's brand visibility, there's pool of human resource, there's product interaction, there's product awareness, advertisement space, product penetration, and even brand alignment as well. I look forward to hosting you the next month. So next month, the theme is Beyond Borders, preparing your business for regional and global trade. It's time to think continental. So it's all about positioning your business for intra-Africa trade and global export, from compliance to partnerships. We'll be here to guide you through the steps you need to scale beyond your borders. I want to thank you so much. So let's collaborate to empower founders and build thriving businesses together. So log into our website, www.smefoundersassociation.com, or email us at hello@smefoundersassociation.com. I've been your host, Kathy Karaoke. Until next time, I want to say thank you and see you then. Bye-bye.